Record. Well, good evening, everybody. This is the first of 4 classes in the Gold Star Medical Billing School Billing Boot Camp. Our first presentation tonight is called The Anatomy of a Medical Billing Office. And tonight what we're going to be doing tonight and in the second part of our webinar, we're going to be talking about medical billing in general and giving everybody an overview of the health insurance industry, talking about technology and how technology works for us in the medical billing field. I'm also going to be talking to you all who are listening in and who are interested in a career with Gold Star Medical about how we work with our clients and also how we work with our billers as far as pay goes. And so this will give you an idea of opportunities that you may have in the future as a biller or as a billing assistant with Gold Star Medical. And we'll also talk about information about advancement within the company as well. So let's just go ahead and get started. And I think the first thing we need to do, since this is a billing boot camp and we're going to be talking about becoming medical billers and either working in a setting such as Gold Star Medical or working in a medical billing office, I think it's important for everybody to have a clear understanding of what the functions of a medical billing office are and what you may be called on to do as a medical biller. And so let me go ahead and get there we go. So I'm a person of analogies, and when I first developed this presentation, and this was several years back, and I've presented this a number of times, but several years back when I started thinking about a medical billing office, and I was thinking about it in terms of the body, of a part of the body, I really believe that the billing office is equivalent to the heart of your body. It's really the heart of the medical clinic. And if you think about it, you would probably agree with me that most doctors who are out in the field treating patients, who are in the medical profession, would love to do nothing more than treat patients and never worry about the business of running a medical office. They are by nature healers, and as such, the minutia of business is not what appeals to them. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't some doctors who have great business acumen or who are really business savvy, but that is not the rule of thumb. That's more of the exception. So most doctors just want to be able to treat their patients and not worry about the business of running a medical office. And as such, what we're finding is that many doctors come out of medical school and go straight to work as an employee of a group practice. So they don't have to deal with the business side of medicine. They can go and they can treat their patients, and the group practice has their own billing office and they have their own compliance office, and so they're just guided and directed as to what to do. But what I find is that over time, these doctors will find themselves dissatisfied with that position because they can never generate the kind of income that they were hoping for if they had been working in private practice. As you know, when you're running a business creates a greater risk, a greater financial risk, but it also has the potential for greater rewards. Something that a mentor to me told me many, many years ago when I was just learning the art of practice consulting. He said to me, "You're never going to make as much money working for someone else as you are working for yourself." And that stuck with me over the years, and it's what led me into starting Gold Star Medical, because I realized that as long as I was working for someone else or with someone else, my income would always be limited to some extent, and I really didn't want those limits. And at the same time, having grown up in a family where my father owned his own business, I was used to the ebbs and flows of life in a small business setting. I mean, there were times when I was growing up when when there was a lot of money and we had great vacations and trips to the beach, and then there would be times of the year when we're living on macaroni and beans. I mean, that was our life. And so, but one of the things that I realized was that we always figured out a way to survive. But there are people in this world who can't live like that. They have to. They really feel very insecure with that kind of a lifestyle, and so they want that paycheck, and that's fine. Everybody has their own lane of a comfort level. And so, but the bottom line of all of this that I really want to share with you is that as a medical billing company, what we're doing, or as medical billers, what you're doing is you are helping your doctor, or if you end up going to work for a large medical clinic, or you end up working in a hospital setting as in a medical billing office of a hospital, is that your function is to be there behind the scenes, making things work and making that cash flow work. It is essentially the center of the financial in and outflows of a practice. And really the bottom line is, if claims aren't going out and money's not coming in, that body, which is the clinic, cannot function at its optimal level, and it can even die. And over the years, I was a practice consultant for about 10 years, and there were times when I would take on a new client, and there's even been times when we've taken on a new billing client, and by the time we get to them, it's too late. And they have had so much financial stress, and they are so far behind in their billing and so far behind in their bills that no matter what we do to catch up, it's not enough. They're like on life support. And sometimes we can help them out of it, but sometimes we can't. It's just way too late. And so unfortunately, I have seen over the years some really, really good doctors, from the standpoint of their healing abilities and their patient relations and their bedside manners, doctors that patients love go out of business because they couldn't run the business side of the practice. And so our charge in the medical billing office is to make sure that that doesn't happen. Now, that doesn't mean that a practice can still go out of business if they don't have enough patients and they're not generating enough revenue, but that's not our problem. Our responsibility is on the back end of it. Is if these doctors are treating patients and they're creating billable services that they should be getting paid for, that we in the billing office do everything we possibly can do to make sure that money that is due to them, rightfully due to them, is coming through. So let's talk a little bit about the workings of a heart, and I would like you to think about the billing office in terms of this. Number one is, I know all of you probably walk around all day thinking about your heart and thinking about the fact that it keeps beating. No, of course we don't. We don't do that. What we do is we assume that our heart is going to beat and it's going to function. And every once in a while our heart may race, or we may feel a little bit faint because our heart is slowed down, and that's the only time that we know there's a problem. Okay, but if our heart is working normally, it's just going to beat, and we're going to live, and we're going to function perfectly normally and without ever thinking of it. And so I want you to think about that in terms of a billing office. It's just like the heart. A doctor does not want to worry about whether that billing office is getting the job done. They just want it to work, and they want the money to come in, and the money, they want the charges to go out and the money to come in, and they want a nice even cycle of billing. Now, that doesn't mean that they're not at fault, and sometimes they create their own problems by not giving you the information you need to do your jobs. But when it comes right down to it, you just have to make sure that you're doing everything you possibly can do to make sure that those bills are going out and they're coming back paid as expected. What is the other thing that a heart needs? The heart needs oxygen. And so what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're continually breathing life into that billing office, that it is never, ever idle. I think that if billing goes too long without anything happening, it will have a tendency to gunk up the whole process of a steady, consistent cash flow. And so, just like a heart that needs clear arteries for that blood to flow, so does the billing office. We need it to come in and we need it to go out on a fairly even basis. And, the billing office, like a heart, is something that we shouldn't even think about. It just does its job day in and day out. Doctors and clinic managers want their billing offices to run so efficiently that they don't even need to think about it. I don't know how many of you have seen the Gold Star Medical website or who have looked at the slogan of Gold Star Medical, but basically our slogan is giving doctors the freedom to be doctors. And so I take that very seriously. I believe that we're charged with doing everything we can possibly do to create a situation where our doctors can treat patients freely without as stress or with as little stress as possible, and just enjoy practice and enjoy treating their patients. And so just think about that analogy as you work in the medical billing field. I think it's very, very important that you have the right mindset of what it is you're charged to do as a medical biller. So with that said, let's talk about some of the basic functions of a billing office. And I know that some of you are listening in on this call, and you already are medical billers and you have a lot of experience, but I think it's always good review to look at the many different functions of a medical billing office. So, starting from the very beginning, a billing office may be charged with verifying benefits for patients. And nowadays, verifications of benefits are extremely important because we're finding that more and more of the burden of payment is on the patient. Deductibles are higher, co-pays are higher, and so if you don't know what those benefits are and you don't know what to collect from those patients and you rely solely on the insurance money, the doctors are going to find themselves very, very cash strapped. The days of being able to bill out $100 to an insurance company and get $80 back on a basic 80-20 plan are long gone since the advent of managed care, and since most doctors now are under managed care contracts. Basically, they have to accept the allowable fees. So $100 does not go as far as it did, let's say, 15 years ago. And so many doctors have a hard time adjusting to that, have not been used to collecting from their patients or fully from their patients, and are finding themselves cash strapped. So accurate verifications of benefits are extremely important. A billing office may be responsible for monitoring and entering patient demographics. They also may be responsible for monitoring or entering insurance demographics. Well, what do we mean by that? So when a new patient comes in, and has a new patient intake form, that intake form may be entered by the billing office. Sometimes that's done at the front desk, but sometimes the billing office does it. Sometimes the billing office is charged with entering the insurance demographics, of putting in what the patient's insurance card is and then entering in the information that is contained on the verification of benefits, so that the practice management software will calculate the correct amount to collect from the patient. Sometimes the billing office will be charged with coding, whether they code from a source document like an op note or a SOAP note, or whether that the doctor gives them a super bill or an encounter slip or a routing slip with the codes already on it. Sometimes the billing office will be charged with entering those codes in and getting them ready to be billed out. Sometimes that's done at the front desk. So the first few bullet points are items that may be done by the medical billing office, but may be done by other departments as well. However, when we start getting down about halfway and we start looking at filing claims and correcting claims that have errors on them, and tracking claims as they go through the revenue cycle management track, following up on missing or unpaid claims, posting the EOBs or the explanations of benefits and the payments as they come back in, reviewing the monthly accounts receivable and looking for payments that are beginning to age out over 30 days, maybe running and mailing out patient statements, and then finally, after all of the insurance money is collected, if there's a patient balance left, the billing office may be charged with calling patients to get collections from the patients if they haven't completely paid their bill. So all of these functions are functions of the medical billing office, from filing claims all the way down through the rest of these bullet points. These are our duties that you would be called upon to do if you're working as a medical biller. Some of the more advanced functions of a billing office may include learning how to do institutional billing or hospital coding if you're going to work at the hospital. And this is a whole different kind of coding system. Home health coding is also a whole different kind of coding system. Outpatient surgery coding can be very complicated, and surgery billing can also be complicated because some surgery is performed as an inpatient and some surgery is an outpatient. And so knowing the difference between those different types of surgical coding and billing is a little bit more advanced than just working in a doctor's office and getting the bills out, the outpatient bills out from that doctor's office. DME stands for durable medical equipment, and that is coding for supplies. And so you may end up finding yourself working at a DME supplier and billing out for those supplies to the correct DME insurance carriers. Dental coding is a different code set. It is very similar to medical billing, and of course the billing itself, the billing process and the revenue cycle management process for all of these types of billing are the same. It's just the coding and knowing how to create claims that are not going to have coding errors on them. Credentialing is another function that a medical billing office may do, and that's a very highly specialized type of a position that a person needs to be cognizant of. Working on helping doctors develop their fee schedules, that is another aspect of the medical billing office. And then compliance. Working with the doctors to make sure the billing that is going out and the claims that are coming back in are medically compliant, that there's documentation or doctor's notes supporting the bills that are going out. These are going to be areas that as a medical biller you may be called on to do that are more advanced than just the routine of the billing cycle. And so many of these positions or these functions are what I call carve-out jobs, where it may be a single person that handles these types of functions, or maybe they're even handled by the office manager or a compliance specialist. So, but you need to be aware that you may be asked to do some of these things, and you may have to learn some of this as you go through the process of working in a medical billing office. So how does it all work? You know, the personnel of a billing office can vary and usually do based on the size of the practice. And so a small or a solo practice may have one person who does everything. They may do everything from entering in the charges to billing out the claims and following and tracking the claims. But then as that clinic or the doctor's practice grows, certain duties may begin to get carved out to billing specialists. So a larger group practice may actually have a team of billers, and some of them may be working on the front-end work like coding and billing, pre-authorizations, and then you may have a group that's working on the back end of things and getting, when those payments come in, getting them posted back into the patient accounts, and and possibly checking on improperly paid claims, conducting appeals, reconsiderations, and claim reopenings. And so over time, as a clinic grows, positions may become more highly specialized. And I find this quite frequently when I have people in medical billing from large groups who find out about Gold Star, and they are very very excited about the prospect of maybe leaving their job and going to work from home. And when I discuss their skill set with them, it's a very small, narrow skill set. So even though they have a lot of experience working in a medical billing office, they're missing a lot of pieces of the pie. Okay, and sometimes when they realize how much they have to do and how much they still have to learn, they have a tendency to get a little overwhelmed by it, because they felt that, oh well, I've got all of this experience. But then once you start looking at the medical billing office as a big picture, it's there's a lot more to it than many people think. And so some clinics and doctors have gotten to a point, and this is becoming more and more common, is where they choose to actually outsource a part of all of their billing operations. And that's what Gold Star Medical is we, a big part of our company and a big division of our company is to provide outsourced medical billing services to physicians' offices and physical therapy clinics, chiropractic clinics. And so we have to have a very, very well-rounded basis for being able to do all kinds of outpatient medical billing. And so those doctors have decided that it is too hard for them to maintain quality staff within their offices. They're tired of the constant turnover, and so they want to turn over their billing operations to a professional company that will actually act as their heart. It's like getting a little heart transplant, so to speak, where they don't have to worry about it anymore. They just want to be able to practice, and they want to see that their cash flow remains healthy. And so they hire it out to professionals, companies such as Gold Star Medical. And so I think that what is happening is you're going to see more and more companies do that. Even large companies now will outsource, large practices will outsource their billing and not even have their billing on site anymore. So let's talk about Gold Star Medical in general while we're on the subject, and talk to you about how the whole process works when a Gold Star client signs up with us. And essentially what we do with them is we set them up with a virtual billing office. So when a new client signs up with Gold Star, one of the first things that I do is a needs assessment. And I will have quite a few discussions, and this is before I ever even assign a biller to that client. I will have quite a few discussions with the client about their needs, about the size of their practice. I may even go in and remotely access that practice management software to see if the practice management software is one that we could easily work with, especially if I'm not familiar with it. I may look at some of their accounts receivables and see what kind of accounts receivables they have outstanding. I may ask them to go into their clearinghouse to take a look at the clearinghouse reports to see if we have a lot of claims that are stuck there with errors or with problems. And so I kind of like to ascertain what we're getting ourselves into when a new client signs up. And based on that, I will assign a biller or a billing team to that client. And a lot of it is going to depend, again, on the size of the client. But the billing team may consist of a biller who's going to handle all of it if it's a fairly small account, or if it's a large account, we may have a billing representative who quarterbacks the account, and then under the billing representative there may be either a billing representative trainee, someone who is wanting to become a billing representative but may not have the overall experience to do that yet, and possibly that trainee is going to work with the billing rep until such time as they can take over that account and run with it. The billing rep supervisor may be bringing on a billing assistant for the larger clinics, and a billing assistant may be helping the billing rep with things such as pay posting and getting statements out, and essentially doing some of the busy work that the bill rep doesn't have time to do. And then we may assign them an insurance verification specialist. And in Gold Star, that is one of the first positions that I did carve out over the years. In the beginning, when Gold Star first opened up for business, the billing reps did their own insurance verifications. But as you may know, insurance verifications are very, very time consuming, and so the billing reps were having to spend an inordinate amount of time just verifying benefits when they could have been spending time following up on unpaid claims. And so it was very interesting. I was referred, a lady was referred to me out of Indiana by another chiropractor who was a client of ours at the time, and they said, we have a lady who worked for us for 25 years as a chiropractic assistant, and she retired, but she contacted us, and this was after we had taken over their billing. She contacted us and said she was thinking about coming back to work part-time, but we've already hired you, so we can't hire her, so we were wondering if you had work for her to do. And so I called her up. I thought, my goodness, 25 years of experience, certainly I want to talk to her. So I talked to this lady, and I asked her, I said, what are some of the things that you really enjoy doing, that you really enjoyed doing when you were working as a chiropractic assistant in this doctor's billing office? And she said, well, the thing I enjoyed the most was insurance verifications. And honestly, I just like my jaw dropped, because most people, that is the thing that they least like to do, is insurance verifications, because they are so time consuming. But she enjoyed interacting with the claims, representatives, and with the customer service representatives, and she just really enjoyed doing that. And so I created that job for her, and so I took all the insurance verifications away from the billers, and they were thrilled, and I gave them to her, and she was thrilled, and the verifications started getting done a lot quicker, so the doctor was thrilled. So everybody won. It was a wonderful situation. And Janie Grog, who was the first verification specialist I ever hired for the company, is still with me 9 years later. She's still doing insurance verifications, and she has probably done over 10,000 insurance verifications for us, and she has 5 or 6 clients that she does nothing but verifications for, and pretty much works full-time doing that, and makes a pretty good living doing it as well. So anyway, it's a very specialized position, and sometimes what we'll do is, in order to get a new person started in the company, that may be the first position, the first job that they do is work for a period of time as a verification specialist. And I've actually had some people do that and then move on to working in the billing department, or working as a billing rep or a billing assistant. So there are many ways to work your way up through the Gold Star ranks, but an insurance verification specialist is one of them. Now, for us, the first 15 to 30 days of a new client's contract or their agreement is a crucial time, because that's the point in time at which we're going to establish our value to them. If we can figure out their software and their technology, if we can work on their communication, how we're going to communicate back and forth with them, since we're off-site now and they're at the office. We may have to do conversion of data. Sometimes a client will sign up with us and they've been with another billing company, and so what they're going to do is they're going to want to have all the data transferred from that other billing company to our software programs. or their new software program. So we may be dealing with data conversion. But the main thing is to get the money flowing in that first 15 to 30 days. If we can get those claims, if we can get some claims out for them, especially if they've been at a standstill, if we can get some billing out, if we can get some patient statements out, if we can get some claims that may be hung up at the clearinghouse that have had errors that were never fixed, if we can get those fixed and get those claims submitted, and the doctor starts seeing money coming in. And nowadays with electronic billing, they can start seeing their cash flow turn around in as little as a week. And so we then become their heroes, and it becomes, the working relationship becomes so much easier than you would even imagine. But the goal is to do everything we possibly can do to get those claims out and get that cash flow going. Because when it all boils down to the brass tacks, they have hired us to collect money. And if we can do what we have promised we would do for them and ease their burdens and allow them to have the freedom to treat patients, they're going to be pretty happy campers. And what I have seen over the years is that when that first 15 to 30 days goes well, we have long time clients. Those first 15 to 30 days are rocky. We've still been able to have good long-time clients, but it's been more of a process. And sometimes we just find that it doesn't work out. And sometimes, and I'm not by any stretch of the imagination saying that it is entirely our fault if the relationship doesn't work, because sometimes the clients simply do not give us what we need to get the job done. And so, you know, at first it may be, you know, kind of like a roller coaster. It's like, you know, chug, 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 real slowly up that hill until you get to the crest. And then it's like, okay, hang on, here we go. And then you're going to go down and just, and, you know, you may have to you can do a lot of catch-up work and work really, really fast in order to get everything caught up. And then again, you know, once it does, then it starts moving a little bit slower again. And hopefully over time, that roller coaster effect goes away and things are just much more smooth and smooth sailing. One of the things that I love to see, especially in a very well-established practice, is I love to see their collections be within $1,000 or so every year, every month, because then we know we're doing the right thing. And we honestly, we've got well-established practices that, you know, where that monthly invoice that I send them is usually within anywhere from, you know, $50 to $100 different each month, and that's a good thing. Now, it could be a bad thing because it means the practice isn't growing, but if the doctor is fairly well established and they're happy at whatever level they are, they just want the money coming in, then that's good. There's no problem with that. You know, some clients don't want to get any bigger than they already are. They just want to make sure that what they are doing is being maximized, and so that's very important. The first 60 days of any new account is really crucial to establishing the office's confidence in us and our ability to work their account. Now, there's a lot to learn in that first 60 days on both sides. We have a lot to learn about them. They have a lot to learn about us. But we have to keep the most important thing in mind is that we've been hired to collect money. And so what you want to do is you want to establish yourself as the rock star of that practice. And I try very, very hard when I'm working with clients and with the new billers in the first 60 days is to give that client that feeling that when I tell them I am going to be assigning you this person, they are awesome, and I want you as a new biller to live up to that reputation. And so in the first 60 days, we need to make sure we're setting up with the client a great billing and tracking system. We're at least getting out statements, and believe it or not, you know, we have taken over accounts where some offices have never sent out statements, or if they have, it's been months and months or even years since they have sent out a statement to a patient because their processes have been so messed up. in the first 60 days, you're going to want to look at some high balance accounts and get them resolved. You know, the doctors love to see these kinds of wins. You know, honestly, sometimes we can make ourselves look really, really good by simply going into the clearinghouse where claims are filed to and finding claims that have never gone any further than the clearinghouse because of errors, and simply by fixing those errors and sending them on, the doctors immediately see a huge jump in their cash flow, and they just think that that's awesome. They love it when that happens. So if you can prove yourself in the first 60 days and then from that point on maintain a healthy collections ratio, your client will never want to leave us, you know, no matter how much they're paying us. And remember this, that clients will pay slightly more for our services than they would if they hired somebody in-house. And that's a generality. Sometimes that's not so, but most of the time our services are more expensive on the surface, okay, when you look at it that way from just a month-to-month thing. But what many clients recognize is that they end up saving money overall in things like lost revenue from when there is an employee turnover, in losing revenue to employees who don't know what they're doing, in paying out for vacation time, for sick leave, for maternity leave. They don't have to do any of that anymore. Payroll taxes. So those intangible costs that they don't necessarily think about, they realize that by bringing us on, they're going to be either paying out maybe a little bit more, or actually paying out just as much. And so if they ever think twice about, well, maybe I should bring the billing back in, they're going to look at the savings that they have, and they're definitely going to, you know, they're going to say, well, even though we pay Gold Star a little bit more, it's not worth bringing them back in and then having to go through all of that hassle all over again, and risking that. And so those are the things to keep in mind when you're establishing that relationship with the new client. Some of the routine duties that you as a biller may be doing would be posting daily CPT codes or daily services, posting payments, patient payments and insurance payments, entering in demographics. It could be patient demographics or insurance demographics, entering in the information from the insurance verifications and keying in what the co-pays are and what the deductibles are, following up on patient phone calls and requests for account investigations, following up on requests from the clinic or the doctor about patient accounts. You know, a patient may come in and say, hey, what's going on with my account? And so the doctor's office is going to call on you to do an investigation into that patient account. Going into your clearinghouse where you bill the claims to and checking your reports for claims that have aired at the clearinghouse, or claims that have come back from the insurance company to the clearinghouse with errors on them, and fixing them. And then I call daily love notes to the clinic. You know, that's one of the things that I really encourage my billers to do, is to establish a good relationship with the office staff especially, or with their client if they're dealing directly with the client. And you know, the reason for that is because they can't see you. They can't see the work that you do. They can't see how hard you work for them. So everything you do is over the technology that you have. And so, you know, when I was working an account, you know, and now I don't, you know, necessarily work the day-to-day accounts anymore. But when I would go into the practice, I would log into my doctor's office every morning, and on my, you know, there was, this one doctor had a program, and in that program there was a place where you could type in daily reminders, okay? And so every morning I would go in and I would type in into the daily reminders, good morning everyone, I'm here, here's my office hours, hope you all have a great day. Let me know if you have any questions. And they loved, loved, loved that because it made them realize that somebody was there to answer questions for them if they needed it. And if there were days when I wasn't going to be in the office, I would post it on that day's daily reminders. Hey, just want to remind you I'm not in the office today. I'm on vacation, or whatever the situation was. And it helped me establish a great relationship with my clients. I would look for things like client anniversaries and maybe staff birthdays, and maybe find out little things about the staff. If they had kids, and possibly there were soccer moms. I would send a note to them saying, hey, how was Johnny's soccer game the other day? And so it helped them to make me feel connected to them, instead of just being that billing company out there somewhere in Texas, and they're in Indiana. They felt like I was right there with them at all times. And as a biller working remotely, you're going to have to do that. You're going to have to keep that relationship close, and keep the relationship with the office staff close as well, because let's face it, they are, meaning the office staff on the other end, they see the doctor every day. They can talk to the doctor every day, anytime they want. If they don't like you, or if they don't feel connected to you, or whatever the case is, it's going to create a situation where the doctor, may feel a little bit of stress, okay? And we actually had a situation, this was many years ago. One of the best billers that I ever had, she's moved on now, and she's working as a practice administrator at a very large group practice here in San Angelo. But she was one of my first billers, and she was amazing. She, could turn an account around like nobody's business. And so we had a client sign up, and basically what happened was this client had a biller in-house that, instead of firing her, he moved her to another position in the clinic. Okay? And so my biller, Josie, took over, but this girl was still there, and this girl did not appreciate the fact that Josie was uncovering things, and uncovering errors, and uncovering mistakes that she had made. And of course she's still there, so she totally tried to derail us with that client. And that, I'm not saying that to scare you guys, but things like that can happen. And we did a great job, but one day, after about 6 months, the client called and basically said, you know what, I just can't do this anymore. The stress of the adversarial relationship is just too much. And instead of firing her altogether, he let us go, because she was there. In his mind, she was a loyal employee, and he didn't want to let her go and whatnot. And so he let us go. And then 6 months later, he called and said, I'm really sorry that I let you guys go. Will you take back over our account? And I told him, I said, we really can't as long as this person is there. And he said, I fired her. And I was like, okay, we'll take it back over. And now they're still clients of ours. So, sometimes those kinds of things happen, and we have no control over it. But most of the time, you're going to find that you have good, rich relationships with that office staff. And the way you do that is through these periodic love notes to your clinic, and these methods of communication that help them feel connected to you. So on a weekly basis, things that you may be doing is working your AR, and AR stands for accounts receivables. And during this whole boot camp, we're going to be talking extensively about how to do that. breaking it down into bite-sized pieces each week so that each month you can get through your entire accounts receivable and make sure that all of your outstanding claims are accounted for and that they're either in the process of being resubmitted, appealed, or at the very least you have a reason why the claims haven't been paid. On a weekly basis, you may be billing out claims. Most of our office bill twice a week, but a smaller office may be able to get away with billing once a week. You would, on a weekly basis, you may be purging or archiving your clearinghouse reports, pulling your online remits, which are the payment explanations of benefits from the insurance company. Many of these now come in an electronic format, and so you can actually go to your clearinghouse or go to the insurance carrier's website and extract those from the clearinghouse and post them back into the client's practice management software. Following up on items in your suspense file or your to-do list, and we'll be teaching that later in the billing school about how to set up a suspense file, and then cleaning up virtual files that you may have and filing or shredding your paper documents. In this day and age, as a biller, especially if you work from home, you're going to have to be very, very mindful of HIPAA compliance and making sure that you don't have protected health information laying around or visible to the public. And so one of the things that I will be doing with you as a Gold Star, if you come on with Gold Star and work with us as a biller, is I'll be doing an assessment of your home office to look for areas of risk where we could be encountering HIPAA violations. But at the very least, what most of our billers do, in all honesty, is they don't even print their documents. They have a dual screen where they have their remits on one screen and then they have their practice management software on the other, and they post like that. But if you're like me, and I'm old school and I like to see it on paper so I can, check things off and make sure that's just me. That's the way I process. I print and shred. And so I have a shredder right next to my desk, and as soon as I'm finished with anything that contains patient protected health information and I'm finished with it, I immediately shred it. And then the electronic format of that file I will file away in a virtual file folder, and I'll explain a little bit more about that as we talk about how we set up our virtual filing systems and so on and so forth. But these are some of the routine duties that you may be doing as a medical biller. And then monthly, you would be charged with running a new accounts receivable report every month and working through that throughout that following month, running practice statistics for your client and also for me, so that I can turn around and invoice our clients for their services to us that we've given to them, running patient statements, meeting with the doctor or the clinic owner or the office manager on challenging collection issues. And in the beginning, you may be doing this once a week as you're working through a number of challenging accounts, but over time that should drop away, and maybe you're meeting with them on the phone a couple of times a month, and eventually you would want to set up a meeting once a month. But I would say that you would want to, at the very least, meet with them once a month over the phone. I have found that over the years that billers who stop meeting with their clients by telephone on a consistent basis once a month begin to disconnect with their clients, and vice versa. They begin to disconnect with the billers. And so to me, that is always a red flag when the clients are no longer meeting with the billers. Because as long as they're meeting with you and as long as they understand what you're doing and the extent to which you're working for them, they're going to be happy with you. And so, at least once a month, meeting with your doctor or office manager on these collection issues, but it could drop to once a month. Meeting with your billing rep supervisor. If you're working as a billing assistant, this is going to be an important concept to go over client issues and performance results. And you know, kind of use the same schedule as the doctor or clinic meetings. You may need to do that once a week, twice a month, once a month, but you should be having discussions with your supervisor, your billing rep supervisor, to go over challenging issues that you may be encountering. Okay. Okay. So let's talk about, how did that happen? Hold on. Let me go back up. Okay, so what type of billing services do we provide our clients? And you know, basically almost all of the functions of a billing office we can do, including insurance filing, claims follow-up, insurance verifications. In some cases we can process pre-authorizations, but most of the time we require our clients to do that, but we will let them know if pre-authorizations are necessary. We will help maintain the insurance accounts in the doctor's practice management software system. We would be responsible for posting insurance checks or EOBs or remits. In some cases, the client asks us to do the posting of the daily services. We may be advising doctors on their coding and billing options. If we notice that doctors are coding incorrectly or missing modifiers that they should be using when they're doing their coding, we let them know, and we let them know what they need to do and what kind of improvements they need to make. We may be working with patients on resolving account balances and billing problems, sending out monthly statements to patients, and AR cleanup. So these are generally the main functions under a doctor's billing contract that we could be called on to do. And again, some of these, the doctors have the ability to choose all of the services we provide or just a portion of them. And so many of our doctors, for example, will do their own coding, and then we take over the account at the time, from the time that it's ready to get billed. Okay, and so as a result, their invoices are based on a certain percentage, whereas doctors in which we're doing the coding and we're submitting the codes for them are invoiced at a different percentage. And so, let's see. Oh, so how we get paid essentially when the client gets paid. Most of our clients are paid on a percentage of we're paid on a percentage of the client's collections, depending on the level of service they choose. Now, that doesn't mean, we do have some clients that we charge an hourly basis, but most of our clients, basically what happens is when we sign a contract with them or they sign a contract with us, we discuss which insurance types or case types we are to do the billing for and do the work for. And so the doctor may say, well, I would like you to handle our Medicare and our commercial insurance claims. And so we look at their software, we choose the case types based on their software, and we work on, we do all of the billing and all the follow-up on those case types. At the end of the month, we will print practice statistics that show the collections on those case types, and then I will invoice the doctors a percentage of those collections. Okay, and the percentage is going to be based on the level of service that they choose. So again, the more services they choose, the higher the collection percentage. The average is around 7%. Some are a little bit more, and some of our long-term clients may even be a little less. We also, for large accounts and for certain types of billing profiles, we may even charge a lesser percentage, and sometimes our percentages can go down as low as 5.5% or even 5%. But there are certain criteria that need to be met in order for that to happen. But some of our clients like a smaller clientele, so if it's a brand new practice or if it's a very, very small account, we may just charge them by the hour, because under our collection percentage agreements, they have a monthly minimum that they have to pay no matter what is collected. And so if they're so small that the monthly minimum is too much, then we offer to do the service at an hourly basis until they grow to the point where they would be where we'd be working on a collection percentage. We can service all types of doctors at this time. The reality of our business is that the majority of our clients are chiropractors. And the reason for that is because I personally started my medical administration career in the chiropractic field. When I was a practice consultant, I was a consultant literally for hundreds of chiropractic offices over a 10-year period. And so I established a reputation within the chiropractic industry. And so most of our referrals, our first clients and our referrals came from chiropractors, and they continue to do so. Now, over the years, we have branched out, and we also do billing for other types of medical disciplines, such as psychiatry, behavioral health, LPCs, licensed professional counselors, clinical social workers, physical therapy, pediatrics, dermatology. We've even done dental in the past, and so we can essentially service any type of doctor to a certain degree. There are going to be certain medical disciplines that I will probably stay away from because the billing and the coding is very complicated. But if they really want us, we will figure out a way to make it happen for them. Okay, and we're at a point now with our with our billing boot camps that we're doing is we are training you, if you're listening to this webinar tonight, and if you've been to our boot camp recently and you're not working for Gold Star, I was talking to the class on Saturday, the live class that we did, and we did this very presentation. And I just want to assure you that I'm very burdened to try and help find clients for you. I know that you spend a lot of time and you're spending money to take these classes and take these boot camps with the hope that it will give you a career in the medical billing field. And while I can't guarantee that I'm going to be able to give you a job or give you work as a medical biller because it is dependent on the clients signing up with us, I will tell you that you all are going to be first in line for jobs because you're putting in the time and you're getting the training, and whether you have the experience or not, I'm more than willing to work with you since you have taken the time to and the diligence to do these classes and to sit and listen to me for 45 hours. And so I really want you to feel confident that I am going to work hard to try to find work for you. And it may be, a month from now, it may be longer, but I will essentially go through every one of you and give every one of you opportunities to work until none of you are left or you found jobs somewhere else. And then when that happens, I'll hold another billing school. And it literally, the last time I ran a billing school like this was in 2013. So that shows you, the billers that we have now in Gold Star Medical have been with us for that long. And many times what will happen is you will start maybe with a smaller client, and then as new clients come on board, you would then take on more clients. And so, how many clients can you service would really depend on the size of the client and the type of the medical discipline. So, for example, chiropractic billing is pretty easy compared to billing for orthopedic surgery or dermatology. So really what my goal is to give you enough to where you're not overloaded and compromise the quality of your work, but give you as much as you need to be happy. I've got some billers who just want to work part-time and they don't want any more work than I give them. And then I have other billers who are really looking to to really increase their income potential by not only working full-time, but maybe moving into supervisory positions. And everyone that is listening in on this is going to be at a different point in their lives and a different point in their careers. And, you know, maybe you just want a little something to do on the side, and maybe you want to make a career of this. And so any way that you want to do it, I'm going to want to try and accommodate that as much as I possibly can. One of the great things about doing this boot camp and having you listen in on these classes and having you take these classes and become proficient at the billing and the coding processes is that it frees me up to do more marketing and to feel comfortable taking on more new clients, because one of the things that I'm very, very careful about with respect to Gold Star Medical and my company is that I only want to grow as fast as the quality of service allows me to do so. And if I only have 1 or 2 qualified people in the wings waiting to take on a new client, I'm not going to go out to a trade show and try to sign up 5 or 6 new clients at once. Whereas if I have 6 to 10 qualified people who've been through this training, who are ready to go, then I can go out and I can do much more aggressive marketing to try and bring on new clients. And we're already seeing the fruits of that. And so anyway, I hope you're excited about that prospect, because I know I'm excited about having those of you who are listening in and taking these boot camp classes to come on and work with Gold Star. And, you know, and if that doesn't work out, then at the very least have me provide, you know, recommendations for you to companies within your community that maybe, or medical clinics within your community who may be hiring, and give you a leg up on that and be able to give you a great reference for that. So for a full-time biller or full-time bill rep, they can usually service anywhere between 1,000 to 1,200 claims a month. But again, this is a very rough estimate and dependent on the how complicated those claims actually are. One of the things that I always talk to our billing reps about is the fact that when you sign up a new client, and we sign up a client and I assign one to you, I want you to think about that client as if it's your baby. You're going to have the full responsibility of the servicing and maintenance of that client, especially if you come in as a bill rep. And our goal is to give them the peace of mind that their accounts are being taken care of, so that they can concentrate on helping patients. And that's how I want you to feel about your client, because I'm just going to say the opportunity that you have as a Gold Star representative is not usual. It's not usual that you can get a job where you can work from home and work your own hours and have the flexibility to do this job and be able to work around your family and be able to get to your kids' soccer games and be able to take vacation and all of the things that are part of working as a Gold Star bill rep. You're going to have a lot of autonomy in your job. And so in order for me to be able to bring you on, is I have to be able to trust that you're getting the work done. Most of our clients will initially sign a 12-month agreement, but they will have a 6-month conversion option, which means if they don't like the service, they can drop it after 6 months. And that essentially gives us a good 6-month time frame to prove our ability to take care of them. Generally, outside billing is a little bit more expensive for the client than hiring staff in the office. But on the other hand, they don't want to worry whether the insurance claims are going out or getting paid or being followed up. They've chosen us to get consistent professional results, and that's what we aim to give them. Our goal is to collect 100% of all insurance claims that are collectible. And so what I mean by that is, we know that some insurance claims are not going to be collectible because the services aren't covered by the patient's policy, or the services go to the patient's deductible. But if there's money to be collected, your goal is to collect every single bit of it. And We also are charged to monitor the doctor's office staff to make sure they're doing their portion in collecting the patient copays and deductibles, because that does factor in to the percentage that we charge them. We don't want to have to go after the patient for money, because that always creates tension within the clinic with the patients. It's better for them to make the payment at time of service if it is at all possible. And so this makes our job during accurate insurance verifications and timely billing and follow-up extremely important. And so, we just want to make sure that we're getting the results that we want to, because the results are going to be what equals our job security. The way we work is we act as a virtual office. So we're going to work with their software most of the time, which means that if you were to come on as a billing representative or a billing assistant, you would be given a remote login from your computer to the doctor's computer. So you're sitting in Texas, or you're sitting in New York, and you're working in Indiana, or you're working in Florida, you may be working in California. So you're going to work with their software program. When we talk about the software, we're referring to the practice management software that keeps the patient accounts, and that the daily charges are posted into, and the claims are billed out of, and the checks are posted back to. So that is the software program that you would be using to maintain and monitor those doctors' accounts. We would have a liaison in their office to provide us with information we may need on certain patients, like copies of doctor's notes or copies of insurance cards that are not in an electronic format. Most of our communication, in order to be HIPAA compliant, is through the software program itself. Most practice management software programs have communication features where either there's internal email or messaging or instant messaging or chat, where you can be working with that software program and speaking to the office in a secure setting without having to worry about going through email, which is not HIPAA compliant. We try not to disrupt their operations, and so we keep phone calls between the client and our offices to a minimum. You don't want the client calling you all the time, because you're busy. You're busy calling insurance companies to find out why claims weren't paid, and so you're on the phone all the time. And if the client is calling you and they're getting a busy signal, they're going to be frustrated. If you're calling them all the time and preventing them from scheduling appointments, they're going to be frustrated. So you want to keep those phone calls to a minimum and only call when absolutely necessary, and during pre-scheduled meetings. Most of the time, everything you're going to be doing is going to be in writing. And as a Gold Star billing rep, you are going to be documenting your work like crazy. We'll be talking about that a lot through this billing boot camp. This is a much more personalized service than most billing companies give, but what we find is that we also have a much higher longevity rate of clients, because instead of them feeling like we're just that billing service out there, they feel like we're more a part of their office. I mean, we have clients that write to me around Christmas time and ask for the addresses of their billers so they can send them Christmas presents. I mean, that's how our clients work. Many of them do anyway. And so, these are very personalized services. Billing reps have the freedom to set their own hours. However, as a billing rep, you would have certain guidelines that do need to be established. And one of them is that insurance companies are only open during the week. So what that means is, unless you're working strictly as a billing assistant where you're going to do pay posting, and you could do that any time of the day or night or weekends, and you're going to be working with the client, coordinating billing activities with the office, talking with insurance companies, it means you're going to have some weekday hours. And so you need to be aware of that. If you're charged with entering the insurance verifications or insurance demographics, these have to take priority, because many times they determine how the bills go out, whether the bills actually will go out under insurance, and what the patient benefits are. So those are time sensitive. Posting, meaning posting insurance payments, can be done anytime. filing, doing your virtual filing can be done anytime. There are going to be times when you may have to reach a patient in the evening. This is very rare. But the bottom line is when you begin to work from home, it's going to be important for you to establish a routine and set some hours. You're also going to have to establish boundaries. And, you know, I've been working from home since 1999. And at first, when I began to work from home, my family thought that was the coolest thing in the world because Mommy was home all day long. Okay, and they just thought they had unlimited access to me. Well, they don't. And I know, you know, we have got some billing reps even here on the call tonight, and when I open it up to chat, Christina, if you're on the call, I would like you to share with with everybody here on the call what you do, because Christina has, I don't know, I can't even count anymore how many children she has. She homeschools them, and she works as a Gold Star billing rep. She's one of my super women, Wonder Women poster bill reps, and you know, I have no idea how she does what she does, but she gets it done, and man, does she do a great job for us. And then, you know, on top of all that, she comes and spends the evening listening to me talk, you know, for 3 hours. So, you know, I unbelievably tip my hat to her, but she has got to have her system so down pat in order to be able to do everything that she does. And part of it is establishing a routine, sticking to it, helping your family, your friends, and everybody who knows that you're now working from home understand that when you're working, man, you're working, okay? And that you just can't stop whatever you're doing to go get your kid a sandwich or go pick up the dry cleaning or start dinner or whatever the case might be. You're going to have to establish that routine for yourself as if you were actually going to work. I have some billers who insist on getting up in the morning, getting showered, getting dressed as if they're actually going to work. I have some billers who would die if they had to get out of their bunny slippers at the, you know, during the day. I have actually had days where I have worked all day in my bathrobe. I've never gotten dressed. You know, I start at 6 in the morning, and by the time I pick up my head and finish my work for the day, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I realize I'm still in my bathrobe. I mean, and that's the beauty of what we do. You know, you can actually do that. And so, I'm happy that you have that ability, but again, you need to establish the routine. Gold Star contractors, and you are going to be contractors if you come to work for Gold Star Medical, you're going to work on the honor system. I trust all of my people until they give me reason not to. And there have been a few occasions over the last 10 years in which I've had to let contractors go because they have not worked the hours they said they were working, the jobs weren't getting done, and I've had to let them go. But that has been very, very rare. I feel extremely fortunate. And I do a very, very strong vetting process. I don't just take on anybody to do this work because I can't micromanage you. I don't see what you're doing. I'm just trusting that you're getting the job done. And initially, the way it works, when you enter in as a Gold Star contractor, you're going to receive an authorization for hours for your client. You're going to invoice me for your negotiated hours worked. And the authorization of hours is going to be based on your level of experience, and it's going to be based on the size of the client. So after I've determined what size of the client, I'll tell you, you have, you know, so many hours to work this account. And it's going to be up to you to keep an accurate accounting of your hours. If you're going to work fragmented hours, 15 minutes here, 30 minutes there, you might want to keep a log. We have some good online time clock, project time clocks that will, you know, talk to you about. Some duties are paid by the piece. Now, once your client renews their contract, then you're going to be given an opportunity to share in the revenue of the client's invoice instead of working on an hourly basis. And if your client remains with you for 24 more months after you start doing revenue share and is a viable candidate, and we'll talk about what a viable candidate is at that time, For sale of that account, you'll be given the opportunity to buy the account outright and keep all the profit of that account. Okay, and a viable candidate is a client that you know is going to be a very loyal one that's not going anywhere anytime soon. They're not going to be retiring in the next 2 to 3 years. So if you buy the account, then there is certain criteria that need to be met in order for that to happen. So, I'm going to give you that opportunity to really create your own billing business if that's the way you want to go. Now, I've got some billers who are not interested in that. They just want to work for a client. They don't want to try to go out and get any new clients of their own, so they're perfectly happy doing what they're doing. Some of you may be given the opportunity to revenue share before that year is up, depending on your level of experience and where you're coming in. Occasionally, I will start a new Gold Star contractor immediately with a revenue share, but that's fairly rare. You really have to have a tremendous amount of experience to do that. So really, for those of you who are just coming in with limited experience in medical billing, you would need to plan to be working on about an hourly basis for about a year before you move into a revenue share situation. And again, if your client is on an hourly contract, then you would have to stay on an hourly basis. And so there are some issues with that from time to time and client to client, but in general, my goal is to have you on revenue share versus the hourly. To advance in the company, there are things that you can do. One is to become a supervisory biller, and a supervisory biller may develop and train an entire billing team to work with you. And I actually have some people on the call today who are working as now supervisory billers, and they're training themselves to become supervisory billers and to become trainers themselves. And that allows you to take on more clients and receive the net revenue share of each client account that's in your portfolio. I have a biller right now who has 6 or 7 clients under her. She has several people that work in billing assistant capacity to her, and we're paying them hourly, but she is receiving revenue share on all of those 6 clients. And so, as a result, somebody who is in that type of a position, can be making a very, very competitive wage in comparison to what you would be making as an equivalent job in a billing office at a hospital or at a large clinic, or as an office manager. You could be making quite a nice living working from home as a supervisory biller. Also, Gold Star Medical is not just a billing company. We also have a consulting division, and as that part of the division continues to grow, and it is continuing to grow, I'm going to be looking to bringing some of you in as consultants, either coding consultants, billing consultants, or compliance consultants, and work with clients on challenging situations and do basically project consulting. So you may have a 1 or 2 or 3 month project where you're going to work with a client on helping them turn around their billing system. Maybe they're not going to hire us to do their billing, but they're going to want our help in establishing good billing systems for their offices. Also, the ever-increasing demand for auditors, either on-site auditors or documentation auditors, and instructors. As the company grows, I'll be looking to some of you who excel, who have teaching backgrounds, who may be interested in teaching, to come out and possibly teach boot camps or career seminars, coding or billing compliance or certification courses. And also, some of you may be called on to become trainers or starters. And what I mean by that is, maybe give you an account to get started and do the needs assessment on that account, set up the billing team, and then turn that over to the biller, then take on a new account, do the same thing. And so there's opportunity there. And finally, there's opportunity in sales and marketing and new client acquisition. So if any of you are listening to this webinar and you're interested in possibly some work, commission work in acquiring new clients. And of course, if you acquire a new client and they sign up with Gold Star, not only would you get the commission on that, but you'd have first dibs at that account, obviously. And so sales, marketing, and new client acquisition is another area in which you have the opportunity for advancement within the company. Okay, so that is the end of this segment of the presentation. I'm going to open up the lines now and unmute everybody. And so let me go ahead and do that. Are there any questions at all about what we've talked about? If there are, I'm not hearing anybody, so I don't know. Hopefully I got everybody unmuted, but okay. So here's what we're going to do. It's right about 7:25. We're going to take a 10-minute break, and then we're going to come back at about 7:45. 35, 40, yeah, we'll come back at 7:45, and then we'll finish up we'll start talking a little bit about how the technology works and so on and so forth. So Christina, after the break, I'd like you to talk a little bit about your experience as a biller and, how long you've been with us and, kind of how you manage your time. I think that would be really good for some of the ladies that are on the call tonight. So I'm going to stop the recording. So what we're going to be talking about now is technology and medical billing, and how really technology has changed the face of medical billing and has allowed us to do the kind of work we do without having to physically be present in an office. And so, in all honesty, I have been involved in the medical billing field since 1982. That was when I first started filing insurance claims, and so that's 35 years that I have been working at this. And back in those days when we had to file insurance claims, we didn't have computers. There was no such thing as electronic billing. Everything was filed through paper format on what they called at that time the HCFA, or the Healthcare Financing Administration 1500 claim form. And in 2003, when HCFA was renamed CMS, that claim form became the CMS 1500 claim form instead of the HCFA form, but they were still, all the claims were filed on paper. And in those days, we had essentially our insurance filing system consisted of a box at the front desk that had patient ledger cards in them. They were literally the size of about a half a sheet of paper, and when a patient came in for their visit, you would write down the service on that ledger card, what was done and why the patient was in for for their visit. We didn't have to put diagnosis codes on the claim form. We could just put the reason for the visit being cold or flu or whatever the reason was, back pain, and then put the claim in the typewriter and type that claim up and put it in the mail. And maybe we would get paid, and if we were lucky, we would get paid anywhere from 45 to 60 days later by the insurance company. But in many cases, it would take up to 90 days to get paid. And because the claims were filed on paper, they would be sent to a claims representative or a claims reviewer, and that claims reviewer would eyeball those claims for accuracy, but they would have a tremendous caseload of claims to review every month. They had quotas that they had to meet. Many insurance carriers had claims quotas. back in that time. And so, and also by law, an insurance company was to pay or deny a claim within 30 days. And so these claims reviewers would have, it says, Christina, at least I'm here, but I think you have me muted. Okay, hold on a second. Let me see what my, yes, I do have you muted. Christina, can you hear me? Are you unmuted now? I unmuted you. Let's see, Christina?
Lisa?
Yeah, there she is.
Hey!
Hey! Okay, super. Well, Christina, look, while I have you, before I go on with this, with my, way back when story, and I was, walking through the snow in, for 4 miles in bare feet to get to school. I want to have you kind of introduce yourself to the class. Let them know how long you've been working with Gold Star and kind of what your story is as far as, your experience working from home, and what maybe some of the challenges are that you've had. So I'm just going to turn it over to you so you can talk about that a little bit.
Sure. Well, I've been with Gold Star for almost 3 years. And prior to Gold Star, I focused on my family. I have 7 kids. We homeschool, so, that's a big responsibility. And I was looking for something that I could work certain hours where, if somebody, was sick, or, if they had their baseball game or anything, that I could work my hours around that. And when you work outside of the home, there's a lot, you cannot really schedule your work around that. So, going back, ever since my early 20s, I was involved in the medical field. I've always loved it. It's always fascinated me. So this is honestly like my dream job. I get the best of both worlds. I get to work from home. I get to be with my family, and I get to do what I love. So that's just amazing to me. So my biggest challenge, I guess, is that I like to have everything completed and done, and sometimes it's just I want to make sure there's enough hours in the day. And other than that, it's the best. I couldn't ask for anything more. As far as it's just about having a lot of structure and a schedule that works for you. My schedule might not work for somebody else, and vice versa. So it's just you have to find what works for you and your family. And I think that's kind of, what you have to do in the morning. I get up, I make sure that, none of my doctors have emailed or said anything that they need done immediately. If they have, I take care of it, and then I go ahead and I get the kids started on their schoolwork. And then once they're situated and everything, is kind of running smoothly there, I get started on my work. And it just, it works out for us. And then by the time they're done with their school, the bigger kids help with lunch. And, I have my kids, their age ranges are from 2 to 17. So, it's a big age range. And the big ones help with the little ones or help with lunch. And then by the time we're winding down, after they're done with everything and I'm done with work, and it's dinner time, so I'll start dinner. My husband comes home from work, and, then we go on, if they have a game or if there's something that they have that they're meeting up with friends or whatever the case is, then, we kind of work that around there. But, as far as, I guess some people, working outside the home, having that structure there, it works for them. I can say one thing. Just you really have to be structured and scheduled, and you really have to find what works for you, because you need to say, okay, there has to be a point of view where you turn off and you say, okay, now, I'm mom, but if there's an emergency, I'm here, but otherwise, I'm working. And, here's your kind of, you go to Big Brother or you go to Dad or whoever if, you need a drink or a sandwich or something like that, because, otherwise everyone will just run up to you when you're on the phone with an insurance company or some, on the phone with the doctor, and they'll, want this, that, or the other, and then you get off the phone and they're playing, they start playing and they're fine, and it always seems when you're on the phone. So, it's like I said, it's just about finding that schedule that works for you. So.
You get me tired just thinking about what you do every day, Christina.
Well, let me tell you something. A good cup of coffee goes a long way.
Sure it does.
I'll tell you that.
You talk about me being busy, but my goodness, 7 children, homeschool, working, I mean, literally almost full time, really, and just doing really such an outstanding job for your clients. Really kudos to you. Christina also is Christina is one of our credentialing specialists. So when we do have credentialing projects, Christina will take on most of those. And so occasionally she may be even doing more work than she normally does. Christina, I want you to testify to this, that, and I'm not forcing you to say this, but have I or have I not asked you on many, many occasions, do you have too much work?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
You always make sure, if I feel like I'm overwhelmed, you tell me just to let you know, and absolutely, you definitely make sure that, that I'm comfortable with the work that I have.
Yeah, because here is how I work with my billers. I'll keep, if you're good, I'm going to throw more and more work at you until you tell me to stop. I mean, and that's the way, honestly, that's the way most employers are, is they're going to find those good people, and they're going to pile on the work until they get to a point where that person says, no more, enough is enough. And I don't ever want to get to, my billers or billing assistants or anybody to that point where they are doing so much that they're getting burned out. And I try to be very, very mindful of that. But I welcome open lines of communication with respect to that, because I don't ever want that situation to take place. If you're telling me I want to work part-time 20 hours a week, that's where you're going to end up, and if you end up taking a client that grows past that 20-hour range, and we need to add somebody to your team to help you out so that you can stay at that 20 hours, or give you a different client that's a smaller client and turn that one over to somebody else, we'll do what we have to do. And so I just wanted you to sort of get an idea from Christina how it is. And by the way, Christina and we had a chance, fortunately for us, to meet, was it a year or so ago, Christina? But Christina lives in New York, and I'm in Texas. And she worked for me for almost 2 years before we had a chance to meet face to face. And so, I have the opportunity, because of this business, to bring on good people who can be trained and who can do this kind of work without me ever having to meet them. I brought Christina on under recommendation from one of my other billers, and I was not disappointed. So thanks, Christina, for sharing that. So getting back to our discussion on technology, back in the day when billing insurance claims first started, there were many more opportunities for insurance claims representatives to deny claims, because again, they had those quotas, and the quota was, the law is that you have to pay or deny a claim in 30 days. And so because they were so overworked and were so overburdened with the volume of claims that were coming in, they would oftentimes deny a claim for no reason. And so you'd have bogus denials come to an office, and so you might bill out a claim, and then 90 days later or 60 days later get a denial from that insurance company for no good reason, and then you'd have to start the process all over again. And so billing back in that time was very, very cumbersome. There's no way that that could have been done by an outsourced billing company. At the very most, an outsourced billing company might be a local person within that town that could come to the office and pick up all the work and take it home and work from home that way. But other than that, really, if you were going to outsource your billing to a company out of state, you'd have to mail everything to them, and it would just make an already long process even longer. But with it by 2013, by 2000, the internet was beginning to come into its own. There was the ability to remote into doctors using uh, programs such as GoToMyPC. And then more and more carriers were offering the ability to do electronic claims. Clearinghouses were being established to submit claims through to be able to sort those claims out. And so as a result, by 2013, now we're at a situation where by 2013, 95% of claims that are being filed electronically. And the estimate is that by 2020, and it could be sooner than that, but I'm thinking probably within the next 3 to maybe 5 years, paper claims will be completely obsolete, and all claims will be filed electronically. And so as a result, it opens up the world for medical billing. The practice management systems are the systems that you use to conduct your work and do your billing operations, and these will have everything from appointment schedulers to a database to keep patient and insurance demographics, a place to have virtual patient ledgers instead of those paper ledgers that we were talking about when I first started, a way to generate claims from that software, to file them, to track them, to run reports, and to get documentation for those claims, meaning the doctor's notes and so on and so forth. So the practice management software is altogether a comprehensive way to electronically manage the billing operations of a practice. Now, the programs themselves can either be what we call proprietary, which are programs that are where the doctor purchases a license to have that software in their office, and that software is loaded onto a server at their office and then downloaded it into an internal network within their office so that it may be available on multiple computers within their office simultaneously. On the positive side, those types of programs are very secure. The data is safe, and as long as the backups are done daily, then it's very unlikely that they're going to lose that data. Now, but there are situations where, in the event of a computer crash, if the backups aren't done, the doctor can lose days, weeks, or months of data. And so it is very, very important for the backups to be done daily. And then for us, on the negative side, it is a little bit harder to work remotely, because if we log into a doctor's computer remotely, we are at their mercy from the standpoint of, if their internet goes down, we're down. If their power goes out, we're down. If they have a snowstorm and they're out of the office and the computer does a reboot and we can't get back on it, we're down. We've had situations where a doctor goes on vacation for a week and they don't tell us. And so their computer goes through an update and it does a reboot, and we have no way of getting that computer rebooted back up until the doctor is back from vacation. So you may be down for a week, which puts you behind. So those are some of the cons. Now, that doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen from time to time, especially if you're working for a client. For example, if you have a client that is up north, in the winter time and there's a snowstorm or a blizzard, or they lose power, or you're in Tornado Alley and the power goes out because of a big rainstorm or hailstorm. Things like that will happen. The web-based programs, and there are many of them out there, those are purchased as a monthly service. And basically through the web-based programs, you would simply receive a login and you would go onto your computer, log into the internet, and then you would log in through the computer to the program right through the internet. The data is kept on the cloud on external servers. The pros to that, it's very secure. The data is usually very safe through encryption programs. But if your internet goes down, then you have no access to the system. If you don't like the service, meaning the doctor doesn't like that web-based service or discontinue, there's a chance that all the data you have is kept hostage by that web-based program, or you may have to pay a fee to get access to all that patient data. And that's really the biggest con of these web-based programs, is that once you purchase the subscription, it's very hard to change if you don't like it. And so you better be very happy with what you have, because to do a data conversion is a monumental task, and it takes, you know, an extremely long time. Your practice management system, or the doctor's practice management system, needs to have the ability to communicate with the outside world. So for example, when you bill out claims, in most cases, you're going to transmit claims that are ready for billing from the practice management system, and then those claims will be transmitted over to a clearinghouse. And that clearinghouse is going to take all the claims that you billed out that day and sort them. So the ones that are supposed to go to Medicare will go to Medicare, and the ones that are supposed to go to Blue Cross will go to Blue Cross, and the clearinghouse will do that for you. If you don't have a clearinghouse, then you would be required to directly bill electronically to those carriers, which can open up room for error, you know, because you may forget to do a bill to Aetna, or you know, it means that you have to submit multiple batches of claims, and the more times you have to do that, the more chance there is for human error to get in the way, and a claim maybe doesn't get billed that needs to be billed. So the goal is that everybody has a practice management system in which the claims are dumped over to a clearinghouse who will sort and send the claims for you, and you just download one file. The cost for clearinghouses are varied. Some are free, some have a flat monthly rate, some charge by claim. And depending on your client, you may be using several different clearinghouses. If you're working with 3 or 4 different clients, you may actually be working with a different software program for each client in a different clearinghouse. So you're going to have some tech savvy in order to be able to do this job, and you'll need to be adaptable to the different software programs that your doctors may be utilizing. What I try to do is we try to, if we have a software program and we have another doctor that uses the same software, then we try to match them up with a biller who's already has knowledge of that software, so that you're not having to learn too many different programs. Like for instance, Christina, you know, she has maybe, I think she works with 2 different programs, if I remember correctly. But so anytime a doctor comes along with one of those 2 programs, she's going to be considered for work on that account. Now right now, Christina's pretty full, so she wouldn't be able to take on anything until she begins to do more supervisory work. But the practice management system is the key to the success of all of this. And so you're going to have to, if you're uncomfortable with computers, if you're uncomfortable with the internet, you may find this a very stressful job, because you're going to have some tech savvy, at least some ability to do critical thinking through some of the technological challenges that you may face doing this job, because you have to rely on the computer and the software so extensively to do what you do. Now, each insurance carrier nowadays will have their own website, and you can certainly send claims directly to them, but then you would have to be set up with multiple carriers and sort and batch the claims yourself. Um, you know, one of the nice things about working virtually too is that you can manage your billing office online. So your clearinghouses and your websites will help you track claims. You'll be doing a lot of your claims investigations online. So if you run a report of outstanding claims and you see a claim that hasn't been paid in 30 days or more, then instead of having to go to the telephone and pick up the phone and call the insurance company, the first thing you'll do is you'll check you'll check online to see if that claim has been processed, and you'll have a master document that will contain all of your logins and passwords to the different insurance carriers, so that you'll be able to go online and look for old explanation of benefits or payments that may have processed but were never posted. Check for claims that were never processed. Have your EOBs delivered to you electronically, and in many cases, if they're delivered electronically with just a few touches of a button, you can post all those payments at once into the patient accounts and save literally hours and hours and hours of work in manually posting each individual payment to each individual account. EFT stands for electronic funds transfers. We encourage most of our doctors to receive their insurance payments by electronic funds. Number one, they get paid faster. Number two, it helps avoid the issues of maybe employee theft or employee embezzlement. We don't want that to happen, and we certainly, as the billers, don't want to get the checks. I always tell the doctors that, you know, they should never ever have checks sent to us. The checks always go to their office or are delivered electronically online. It also allows you to do credit card processing and auto-posting patient payments if that's part of your service. Online verifications are available through the different carrier websites, and searches and research on coding rules and regulations. A lot of that can be done online. Google is your best friend when it comes to getting virtual help and assistance in billing processes. And so you need to be willing and able to work within the technology to get the job done in a very, very efficient manner. And so, so let me get to our next presentation. That's just a little bit on technology and billing. And what we're going to do is we're going to conclude our class today with the basics of understanding the health insurance and the health insurance industry. Now, there is another module on billing basics. I did not get to that on the Saturday class, and I won't be getting to it in these 3 hours. But we will be discussing that in our class on Wednesday when we do our class. So let's see how far we can get between now and 9 o'clock on this. We may not be able to get to all of it, and so we may be able to do part 2 after that. But let's talk about insurance in general and the health insurance industry. Obviously, in doing what you're doing, and if you're going to have a career in medical billing, it's going to be very important for you to understand your field of expertise. And so in this particular module, you're going to learn about health insurance in general. What is health insurance and what is the purpose of health insurance? I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the history of health insurance and different types of health insurance that are out there that you may be dealing with as a medical biller. I'll be talking to you a little bit about supplemental or complementary payers, and so if patients have more than one insurance plan, how to handle that. We'll talk about, in general, how health insurance plans are administered and benefit structures. And so this should actually take us to the end of our class time tonight. So let's first of all define health insurance. The definition, according to Webster's Dictionary of health insurance, is protection against loss by or through illness or bodily injury. Health insurance provides coverage for medicine, visits to the doctor, or emergency room, hospital stays, and other medical expenses. Some health insurance will pay for things like transportation costs if you have to go to a doctor out of state. They may pay for even a hotel room if you have to spend a night in a hotel prior to receiving a test for an out-of-town service. So health insurance isn't just for the doctor's visits. There are other things that your health insurance may actually pay for. But for the most part, it's for doctor's visits, operations, hospital stays, procedures, and medications. And so, and what health insurance essentially does is it creates a situation where you become part of an organization in which your health is placed within a pool of other beneficiaries who may also be contributing to your health insurance plan, and those contributions form the funds in which health insurance payments are made. Health insurance can be directly purchased by an individual, or it can be provided through an employer. Medicare and Medicaid are programs which provide health insurance to elderly, disabled, or uninsured or underinsured individuals, or people on fixed or limited income. There are a number of companies that provide private health insurance, or what we know as commercial health insurance plans, and these may include companies like Blue Cross Blue Shield, United Healthcare, or Aetna. These are some of the bigger carriers that we all have heard of. But there are others. There can be local companies or regional companies that operate in certain states. Insurance can also be available through an employer for work-related injuries, and this is known as workman's compensation, or through an automobile policy or accidental insurance policy for medical expenses incurred as a result of an auto accident or some type of an accidental injury, and these are known as personal injury policies or medical liability policies. And we'll discuss all the different types here in just a few minutes. But before we do that, let's talk about modern day insurance. And in reality, the first documented instances of insurance actually date back as far as 3000 BC, when there are manuscripts that describe how Chinese merchants would take their wares, their goods, their textiles, and so on and so forth, down the big rivers of China in ships. And so what they would do is they would, instead of taking everything in one ship down the river, they would spread their goods through a number of ships. They might have 6 or 7 or 10 ships, or a fleet that would equally distribute those wares. And the reason they did that was because if a storm came up and one of the ships ran aground and sank, and the goods or wares sank with that ship, they wouldn't lose the entire inventory. Some of the inventory would be saved, and basically what this became known as is a risk pool. And so insurance operates under the concept of a risk pool, where what an insurance carrier is essentially doing is gambling on the fact that the more people they have who contribute into a health insurance plan, and the more money that comes into that health insurance plan, they gamble on the fact that there's only going to be a small percentage of those people who contribute who will actually use the insurance. Okay, many of us have contributed to health insurance plans or other types of insurance for that matter, auto insurance, homeowners insurance, renters insurance, who have never used it. And that's what the insurance companies bank on, is the fact that you're only going to use it if you have a catastrophic instance, or if you have an instance in which you need to supplement your income with this insurance for those reasons. And that is why if you work for a large company, the insurance premiums that are paid to the insurance company are much lower than if you're an individual, because for a large company, let's say Boeing, for example, that has 50,000 employees throughout the United States, their risk pool is 50,000 people. And so they have a lot of bargaining power with the insurance companies to keep the premiums low, because the risk pool is spread out amongst so many people. But if you don't work for a company and you purchase individual insurance, there is no risk pool. You're it. And so your premiums are going to be significantly higher, because the likelihood of you using that insurance is going to be extremely high in comparison to how it operates under the concept of the risk pool. Uh, as far as modern day insurance goes, insurance as we know it today can be traced back in modern times to the Great Fire of London, which in 1666 devoured 13,200 houses. Now, back in the day, London was still a sprawling city, but the homes were built very closely together, and they were all wood structures. And so if a home caught on fire and it was windy, then it could literally burn the entire town. They didn't have sewer systems. They didn't have fire trucks. Everything was buckets. Basically they didn't have even hoses back then. And so in the aftermath of this disaster, a man named Nicholas Barbon opened an office to insure buildings. And so in 1680 he established England's first fire insurance company, and most of the modern day insurance plans were insurance plans against fire and accidents. The first insurance company in the United States was also a fire company and was formed in Charleston, South Carolina in 1732, and again, it provided insurance against fire. The first United States accident and health insurance company was the Franklin Health Assurance Company of Massachusetts. This firm was founded in 1850 and offered insurance against injuries arising from railroad and steamboat accidents. And so what you'll see in modern insurance history, most of the health-related insurance policies were accidental policies for very specific reasons, like railroad accidents or steamboat accidents or coal mining accidents. Those were that was health insurance. The concept of health insurance for routine office visits, to just go to the doctor or to have an operation, was really unheard of. It was mainly against work accidents. In 1887, African American workers in Iowa organized a mutual protection society. So this was like a co-op where they would contribute 50 cents a month or $1 per family for health insurance and burial expenses, and they used those funds amongst only the members of that co-op. And so if somebody had a health need, they could go to the co-op and take money from that co-op to pay for those services. In the 1890s, various health plans became more common, and the first employer-sponsored group disability policy was issued in 1911. But again, back in the day, the health plans in the 1890s and 1911 were for instances where a person was laid off work due to an accident or needed help with health expenses as a result of an accident, and they were paid for lost wages. They weren't necessarily paid for the medical procedures. Some were, but most it was just for lost wages. The first group health plans was purchased from the Equitable Life Assurance Society of the United States by General Tire and Rubber in 1934. And before the development of medical expense insurance, patients were expected to pay all of their health care costs out of their own pockets under what we now know as the fee-for-service business model. So you needed medical services, you paid for it out of your pocket. Nowadays, under health insurance, if a person needs his medical service, they have insurance. The insurance pays the fee based on the patient's benefits. During the middle to the late 20th century, traditional disability insurance evolved into modern health insurance programs. And nowadays, most comprehensive private health insurance programs will cover the cost of routine, preventative, and emergency health care procedures and also prescription drugs. But this wasn't always the case. Most of the time, disability insurance policies were just that. They paid for you to recuperate from an illness or injury and paid a portion of your wages so that you would be able to afford food and not lose your home. But you were still responsible for many of your routine medical expenses. Hospital and medical expense policies were introduced during the first half of the 20th century. During the 1920s, individual hospitals began offering services to individuals on a prepaid basis, eventually leading to the development of Blue Cross organizations. So what you could do is you could pay a fee to your local hospital, and that was held in retainer against the need for you to go and have an operation, okay? And eventually, this developed into organizations such as Blue Cross that would manage these funds, okay? The development of group health plans really blossomed and really came into their own during World War II. And World War II is really what changed the face of modern health insurance. So let me tell you a story. The labor market during World War II was very tight, okay? Number one, when we entered the war in 1941, after the bombing of Pearl Harbor, there was a mass exodus of males who joined up to go overseas and fight the war. What that did was that created a significant labor shortage in factories and in jobs that heretofore had been done only by men. Most of the time, women, up until World War II, were very limited in the types of jobs they could have. They could work as nurses, they could work as school teachers, they could work in, as a housekeeper, but it was very rare that they worked in any type of paraprofessional position as doctors or lawyers, and certainly did not work in factories except for possibly factories that made clothing, where they worked as seamstresses in a clothing factory. But working in a factory that made car parts or tank parts or ammunition or guns was unheard of. Those were jobs for men, and so there was a huge shortage of workers. And so what was happening was companies such as General Tire and Rubber, big steel companies, companies that were producing the tanks and the guns and the materials needed to basically service the war effort, were trying to attract workers by offering extremely high wages. And as such, they were creating monopolies. So they were shutting out the smaller companies. The smaller companies were going out of business as a result, and it was creating monopolies in certain industries, of which the United States is totally against. They're all for free enterprise, okay? And so the federal government intervened and put wage controls in during World War II, where they said you cannot offer significantly more in wages than other companies in your field of expertise or in your field in order to attract more workers. So the labor market, because it was tight with the increased demand for goods and decreased supply of workers during the war, those federally imposed wage and price controls prohibited manufacturers and other employers raising wages high enough to attract sufficient workers. So the War Labor Board then went on and declared that fringe benefits such as sick leave and health insurance did not count as wages for the purpose of wage control. This was how the large companies were able to attract the higher quality of worker, or to attract enough workers to be able to keep their manufacturing operations open by saying, we will pay for your health needs. We will pay your medical expenses. We will give you paid vacation. And so it wasn't until World War II that benefits became the big attraction for workers to go work for certain companies. But when that happened, it opened up a whole new way for businesses to operate. And this is where the unions began to come into their own, so they were able to offer additional benefits for their union members, and the larger the company, the better the benefits. And so this is how the modern group health plans really began to develop and come into their own. During the early days of health insurance, basically, it was a very, very simple program. You paid a premium, or your company paid a premium to an insurance company, such as Blue Cross and Blue Shield, and that insurance company became the manager of that fund. And so as claims were sent in to Blue Cross Blue Shield, they would manage the money that was in that fund. They would sometimes reinvest it on behalf of the beneficiaries for it to make more money and to grow. And that's how Blue Cross, and that's how the insurance carriers made their money, by investing your dollars, your premium dollars, and so if they could invest that money, keep it safe, but at the same time make a 10% profit, then this was where the insurance carriers would make their money, in investing it and expanding their portfolios of holdings and so on and so forth. Well, in 1929, Henry Kaiser began to organize hospitals and clinics to provide prepaid health benefits to his shipyard workers. And some of you may be familiar with Kaiser Insurance. It still is insurance to this day, called Kaiser Insurance, and there are Kaiser hospitals. This became the basis for the Kaiser Permanente HMO. Most early HMOs were nonprofit organizations. The development of HMOs was encouraged further by the passage of the HMO Organization Act of 1973. And the first employer-sponsored hospitalization plan was created by teachers in Dallas, Texas in 1929. But the plan only covered members' expenses at a single hospital, so that becomes the forerunner of what today's HMOs are. And I'll be discussing the difference between HMOs and PPOs here in just a little bit. So just a little bit of background about how all of these events within health insurance, within the insurance industry, paint a picture of how insurance developed into the type of organizations we now deal with today. So let's talk about that. What types of health insurance are out there that we may be encountering as medical billers? And so the most common ones that we'll be working with are the group or individual commercial policies. Now, in a group policy, the employer is going to negotiate a contract with an insurance carrier to provide benefits, health benefits for their employees, and the employer agrees to pay a portion or all of the premiums. Right now, a group policy is available to an employer who has 3 or more full-time employees. That can be considered a group. So the group can be as small as 3 or as big as infinity. It doesn't matter, but it has to be at least 3 people in order to qualify to be a group policy. And to qualify as a group policy, the employer must contribute at least 50% of the premiums to the insurance carrier. They can ask the employee to pay the other 50%. Some employers pay it all. Okay. The nice thing about your health insurance is that if you do have to pay a premium as an employee, it will come out of your check pre-tax, and so it is not taxable income, so it does save you money on taxes. The larger the group, the lower the premiums, and again, that operates under the concept that we talked about of the risk pool. Under the individual plans, the individual pays 100% of the premiums. They're usually higher. And occasionally an individual may be able to hook up with an organization that is not related to employment to create a better risk pool and thereby lower their premiums. Some examples of this are the NASE, which is the National Association of Self-Employeds. If you become a member of NASE, they have health insurance plans available for NASE members, and that membership becomes your risk pool. So that's just an example. The NRA actually has health insurance available for NRA members, where you can purchase discounted health insurance or discounted medical plans to be able to make your medical costs more affordable as a member of the NRA. One of the largest non-employer risk pools out there is AARP, and they offer the largest Medicare supplemental insurance in the United States, the largest group of Medicare supplemental insurance, which is administered through Secure Horizons or United Healthcare. So AARP, Medicare supplemental insurance, is one of the largest carriers in the United States. Commercial carriers such as Blue Cross, Aetna, Humana, United Healthcare, Cigna usually administer these types of group or individual policies. In addition to that, these policies operate under the concept of, or these plans operate under the concept of managed care. So when a patient or an employer purchases a health insurance plan for their employees, or the individual purchases their own health insurance plan, they enter into a contract with that insurance company, and that contract is between the patient and the insurance company. But there are also contracts between the insurance companies and the providers of the health insurance services, and these are called managed care contracts. And under the managed care umbrella are both in and out of network plans. In-network plans represent contracted or credentialed healthcare practitioners, or HCPs. And I don't use the word doctor because other types of practitioners can render services such as physical therapists, occupational therapists, licensed professional counselors. They're not doctors, but they can bill insurance claims for services that they render. And so these are called healthcare practitioners or healthcare providers. And under the in-network plans, basically what happens is the insurance company negotiates with an employer to cover their employees, but they also, on the other side, contract with the doctors to have the doctors provide services at an arranged, agreed upon fee, or a fee schedule. And these doctors will agree to that managed care contract in exchange for essentially free advertising. So what happens is the insurance company tells the doctor, if you join our network of doctors, We will have you listed on our website as a participating provider. Your name will be given to employees of these companies as a participating provider, and this is the way the doctors get their new patients. And so essentially, they take the discount on the services in exchange for essentially free advertising. And so you have the PPO, which are preferred provider organizations under the in-network plans. And a preferred provider organization is one in which the patient has a choice to either seek out a doctor within their network, contracted doctor, or choose to see a doctor out of their network. Now, if they decide that all of the doctors in their network are not acceptable to them and they would like to seek out a doctor outside of their network, or they have a very special relationship with a doctor. They've been, for example, they've had their family doctor for 20 years and they do not want to go to any other doctor, but now they have a new job, and that new job has a PPO plan that that doctor is not in network with. They may choose to stay with that doctor, but they realize that if they do, then their out-of-pocket costs will generally be higher than if they see a doctor within the plan, and some patients will do that. An HMO is much more restrictive, and an HMO stands for Health Maintenance Organization, and this is a plan where the patient must see a doctor who is a contracted doctor in their network, and if they don't, then they may not have any benefits. HMO plans also very oftentimes require the patient to utilize what is known as a gatekeeper or a primary care physician who essentially quarterbacks their health care. So in order for the patient to receive any kind of medical services, under many HMO plans, they first have to go to their primary care doctor, and then the primary care doctor refers them to specialists. The advantages for a patient for an HMO as opposed to a PPO is the lower premiums. So generally the premiums on the front side of an HMO are much lower, but it's much more restrictive, and so you have to, you get what you pay for. If you don't like the doctors on your HMO, or you don't like the hospital that is assigned to your HMO, then you're kind of out of luck. You just have to live with it or change plans, or encourage your employer to change plans, which, of course, as an employee under a group plan, you can certainly do. Now, there are some doctors who are approached by insurance carriers to be under a managed care plan, and they decide not to. They decide that the discounts that they're being asked to take for their services are too deep, and so they do not contract with the insurance carrier. And so in that case, the fee that the doctor bills out to the insurance company is billed at the full fee for service, and the full fee for service is either paid by the insurance carrier, probably at a reduced benefit, or it could be denied outright if the doctor is not in their HMO and it's one of the all or nothing plans. One of the dangers of being out of network as a non-contracted healthcare provider is that because you do not, as a doctor, have a contract with that insurance plan, then that insurance plan has no obligation to you. So in essence, that insurance company does not have to pay you, for instance. Even if the patient requests that the payment go directly to you, the insurance company does not have to honor that request. And so what you'll find, and especially like in Blue Cross Blue Shield plans, if the doctor is out of network with Blue Cross Blue Shield, they very, very oftentimes will have to collect the fee up front from the patient, bill it out to Blue Cross Blue Shield, or make the patient do their own billing, and then Blue Cross will pay the patient regardless of whether the patient wants that payment to go to the doctor or not, which puts the doctor in danger of severe cash flow issues, because if that is to happen, then what will happen is the doctor never gets paid because the money goes to the patient. If the doctor forgets to collect from the patient, then the patient gets that Blue Cross check, and they're looking at it, you know, on one hand they've got their Blue Cross check or their check for their health care services, and the other hand they have their truck payment, and they start weighing the options. You know, so there's a big danger in in having non-assigned health care services where the doctor doesn't get paid, and it is a danger of being out of network. The healthcare practitioner, usually as an out-of-network provider, has the option to bill the fee for the service, and they're not obligated to take a contractual write-off. Some insurance carriers, though, will show what that write-off should be, even though they're not obligated to take it. The patient will look and say, well, how come you're not taking that discount? Because it's on my remit or on my explanation of benefits. How come you're not taking that? And you would say, you would then have to explain that you're not contracted with that plan. And some patients would look at that and say, you know, that's a pretty that's a pretty steep amount for me to pay just to stay with the doctor that I like, when there's another doctor down the street who will take the fee that the insurance carrier you know, contracts with them for, and I'll have less money out of my pocket. And so you know, out-of-network doctors have to have an extremely strong reputation within their medical community, to where patients want to go to see them regardless of whether they're in network or not. And so you'll find that many doctors choose to play the managed care game and be contracted under the different healthcare plans that are out there in your particular community or your doctor's community. The self-insured plans are usually plans that are offered by large companies that fund their own insurance plans. And so they do not have to, you know, even pay premiums. The insurance, the company has their own trust fund that handles the medical expenses, but it still is usually administered by an insurance carrier or a group known as a third-party administrator. And we'll talk about TPAs here in just a second. Other types of insurance that are available besides group and commercial plans are your federal and state entitlement policies. These are policies that are funded by federal money. And of course, the largest insurer in the United States is Medicare. It is the biggest insurance company in the United States, is the Center for Medicare Services, or Medicare. It is funded with your taxpayer dollars and federal funds. And Medicare is a program for individuals who are retired over the age of 65 or who have some type of a disability and have been awarded Social Security disability. Medicare has a separate benefit for hospital, physician, and prescriptions, and it operates under the auspices of the Department of Health and Human Service and the Centers for Medicare Services. Medicare is administered regionally by 22 fiscal intermediaries, or what are known of as Medicare administrative contractors, and they will administer various aspects of Medicare claims. So when you're working as a biller and you have a Medicare patient, you are not going to bill your claims to CMS, to Medicare. You're going to bill it to your regional administrator or your MAC. And every state will have a MAC assigned to them in which all of your Medicare claims go to. If you have a doctor who bills durable medical equipment such as knee braces or orthotics or wheelchairs, rentals, and things like that, and they're Medicare, then there are DME contractors known of as DMERCs, durable medical equipment regional contractors, and those are billed separately out, and they're separated out from the health claims and billed by the DMERCs. And then Medicare also has a program for individuals who have been diagnosed with end-stage renal disease. And there is also Black Lung, which is a workers' compensation program, a Medicare federally funded workers' compensation program for workers who've been diagnosed with black lung disease. And then you also have the Medicaid programs. Now, typically, the Medicaid programs are administered through the state at the state level, but most Medicaid programs rely on subsidies from the federal government to fund the state Medicaid programs. And so Medicaid also falls under CMS and the Department of Medicare and Medicaid Services. This is insurance for people who are on reduced or no income, their hardship, usually based on a monthly household income, and they have to requalify every month for benefits. Sometimes you'll see Medicaid patients where only the children qualify, and they're insured under a program called SHIP, which is State Children's Health Insurance Plan. Most of the time, under Medicaid, 100% of eligible health care costs are covered. The oversight is by the state, and it is administered by various fiscal intermediaries. Medicaid can be fairly convoluted and fairly complicated depending on the state that you may be billing in. Medicaid may have 3, 4, 5 different carriers that you could bill out to, and because the plans are renewed every month, you may have a patient that has their Medicaid services billed out to one carrier one month, and then the next month that carrier is full, and so then they're moved over to another carrier, and you just have to re-verify every single month where the Medicaid claims need to go to in order to get them paid correctly. And so there's a big challenge with Medicaid, and you know, many billers will find that they're going to spend quite a bit of time tracking Medicaid claims and you know, finding out where that money is and getting paid by Medicaid. The fiscal intermediary, as I mentioned, is a commercial insurance carrier contracted by a federal or state agency to accept, process, and pay claims on behalf of that agency, and it will be important as a medical biller to know what fiscal intermediaries you will be working with on a routine basis. Now, to complicate matters even more, there are also within the insurance industry organizations known as third-party administrators, or TPAs. Now, don't confuse a TPA with an insurance company. They're not an insurance company. Basically what they are is a company that is contracted with an insurance carrier to accept, process, and pay claims, or a specific kind of claims, on behalf of that carrier. And this is a fairly common relationship. It's very much behind the scenes. So essentially, on the patient level, patients really never see the relationship of the third-party administrator. This is seen more with the providers and the insurance carriers. And a great example of this is, as you know, based on what I've told you, the majority of our billing clients are chiropractic clients. And so the insurance carrier, United Healthcare, has a TPA that they work with to administer chiropractic claims on behalf of contracted providers with United Healthcare. So if the provider is in-network with United Healthcare, then they are set up on a tiering system. They will be anywhere from a Tier 1 to a Tier 4 provider. If the doctor is a Tier 1 provider with United Healthcare, then they will not have to pre-authorize services, and they can just bill United Healthcare directly. But if they're a Tier 2, Tier 3, or Tier 4 provider with United Healthcare, then what will happen is if the particular group plan requires pre-authorization, then the doctor will have to submit a pre-authorization of services through the third-party administrator known as Optum Health, and Optum Health will determine how many visits that chiropractor can have based on their tier, based on the diagnosis of that patient, based on the documentation. They look at all of that, and then they come up with a little formula and then tell the chiropractor, yes, you can have 6 more visits. And then after 6 visits, they have to go in and try and get more visits. And so that is essentially what a third-party administrator will do. There is a large third-party administrator throughout the United States that negotiates reductions in payment for out-of-network providers called multi-plan. And so sometimes if you work with a provider who is out of network on many plans, you will see that they are enrolled in multi-plan. And basically what multi-plan does is multi-plan negotiates directly with the doctor an acceptable rate of payment and tells the doctor that if you accept this and write off the difference between what you billed and the rate that we're negotiating with you, then we will expedite your claim and you'll get paid faster. Okay, and multi-plan is another example of a third-party administrator. They are not insurance companies. They are private companies that work to assist insurance companies with collections and with pricing of their health claims, and sometimes with coordinations of benefits and peer reviews and pre-authorizations. So those third-party administrators essentially will help with the administration of claims. Other types of insurance that you may encounter as a biller would include personal injury claims. And these are claims that arise out of auto or other accident. And personal injury can be auto policies, company liability plans. A patient goes to Walmart, they're pulling something off the shelf, and 5 cans of refried beans fall on their head, and they have an injury. And so Walmart is responsible to pay for that type of an injury. Or you are going to your bank, and on the way into the bank you slip and fall on the ice. The bank then has a liability plan or a liability policy to cover that injury of their customer. Homeowners policies also have medical liability built into them. So if you or anyone you know, a friend or somebody is at your home and they're injured while they are at your home or on your property, your homeowner's policy would pay the medical expenses for that injury. And then there are supplemental accident policies that you may deal with, like AFLAC or student athlete accidental policies, things like that. Other types of policies that you may have to file for are workers' compensation. And these are very, very specific. For personal injury and workers' compensation, you may have additional reporting requirements. You may have additional forms that need to fill out. And you may have specific time frames for getting things done, and so you have to be very, very aware of the rules and regulations for workers' compensation billing in your state if your doctor participates as a workman's compensation doctor. Other insurance that you may see from time to time, but very rarely, is going to be FECA, which is the Federal Employees Compensation Act. It's a workers' compensation plan for federal employees, and the Federal Black Lung Program, which is a workers' comp disability benefit payment for individuals diagnosed with black lung disease. So with all of that said, let's just kind of talk about how claims are actually administered and how they flow from the office through the carriers. So essentially, the beneficiary, and you can take the word beneficiary and turn that into patient. They have an illness or an injury. They go and visit the doctor or the healthcare provider. The healthcare provider is going to examine that patient. They're going to formulate a diagnosis, and they're going to render treatment or recommend a certain treatment for that patient. Maybe they're going to prescribe medication. But what is going to happen is once that visit has been concluded, then the information on that health encounter, when that physician does an exam or the doctor or healthcare provider sees that patient, that is known as an encounter or a visit. And the information on that encounter is then going to be sent to the patient's insurance carrier, or sometimes it's going to be billed first to the third-party administrator. And so what you can see here is the flow. So if the claim is billed directly to the carrier, then once the carrier receives it, the first thing they're going to look at is, does the patient have benefits? Is the patient covered? And if they are, then it goes into an adjudication process where the carrier then recommends either payment or denial of that claim, and then will forward that claim to the third-party administrator if they're working with one. If they're not working with one, then at that point the carrier would pay or deny the claim based on the managed care agreement that they then have with their provider. If they have no managed care agreement, then it's going to be processed out of network. At that point, the payment or the denial, it might be a denied service. They may say it's not medically necessary, or it may be a service that went entirely to a patient's deductible, and so there may not be a payment. But that information will be sent to the provider. If the provider has an assignment of benefits on file, and essentially an assignment of benefits is a statement that the patient signs that says that they agree to have the insurance carrier directly pay the patient. That's what directly pay the doctor. That's what an assignment of benefit is. And if the benefits are assigned, then it goes to the doctor. If the benefits are not assigned, then it goes to the patient. And the provider or patient or both are informed of the carrier's decision in the form of an explanation of benefits or an EOB or a remit. Those are different words for them. EOB, explanation of benefits, remit, they're all one and the same. It's just a way to explain a carrier's decision. Now, if the bill has to go to a TPA, then it's the TPA that's going to make the review against the patient benefits. They're going to recommend payment or denial, price the claim, send it back to the carrier, and then the carrier is going to cut the check or deny the claim. The payment or denial will be sent to the provider if the benefits are assigned, the patient if not, and then everybody is informed of the carrier's decision. So what will happen is the patient, from the patient's standpoint, they have an insurance card that says United Healthcare. They are going to receive a check from United Healthcare. They're going to receive an explanation of benefits from United Healthcare. The TPA is going to work behind the scenes with the provider and with the insurance company. They will not have generally not have anything to do with the patient. Okay? The patient is going to communicate with their insurance plan. So this is typically the flow of how claims are administered. There may be factors, though, that would affect or delay claims administration, and that could be whether pre-certs are necessary. So if pre-certs are necessary and they haven't been obtained, then a claim may get kicked back, or it may be pending waiting on a pre-certification. It may be that a claim is sent over to a case manager for coordination of care. There are sometimes cases where a patient has a number of different health factors. They may have a number of chronic conditions that are being managed by a case manager at their insurance company. And so before any claim is processed, it goes to their case manager to make sure that there's no duplications of services taking place amongst the different providers. And so that can delay claims administration. And other things that can delay claims administration are peer reviews or independent medical reviews, where a patient is being seen by a doctor, and if the insurance company deems it to be excessive, they may send the patient for an independent medical evaluation, or have a peer of the provider, in other words, another doctor, do a review of that doctor's claims and the doctor's documentation to see if those services are warranted. And so those are factors that could affect or delay or create claims to be administered, you know, or paid or not paid at a certain rate. And so from the provider standpoint, you know, they are looking to the insurance companies to pay these claims. But there's another side of insurance that we cannot overlook. And I'm going to kind of conclude our class tonight with this. And essentially, this is the patient side of things. So one of the things that we need to understand as billers is that overall, most of our doctors are going to receive maybe 40% of their total payments for their claims and their billed services from the insurance company. Most managed care agreements are going to require the doctor to contractually write off anywhere from 20 to 30% of the amount that's billed, and sometimes that's even higher. Sometimes it can be upwards of 40 or 50%. So basically the remaining portion comes from the patient, and understanding what to collect from the patient is crucial to keeping healthy cash flow in the clinics. So if you look at the insurance from the patient side, what the patient is going to do is either themselves or their employers are going to pay a premium to an insurance carrier so that they can be insured. That premium is paid every month regardless of whether they ever use their insurance or not. But if they do have to use their insurance, then typically a patient is going to have maybe they're going to have a copay for just routine doctor's visits. They may have a deductible for hospital stays and maybe for certain types of procedures. It's not uncommon that a patient has both a copay and a deductible depending on the type of service that they are seeking out for the doctor. If the patient has a deductible, that is an amount of money that they have to pay before the insurance company lays out a dime to the patient or to the provider. Once the deductible is met, then the patient generally is going to have a co-insurance. It's also known as a cost share. And so that co-insurance is usually a percentage. Very standard is about 20%, but the co-insurance can be 30%, 40%, 15%, 5%, but 20% is about the standard. And then once the co-insurance is paid, then and only then does the insurance company pay the remainder of the allowable charges based on the contracted amount that is agreed upon between the carrier and the doctor. If the patient has a copay, that's a flat rate regardless of what the fee is. The fee could be $100, the fee could be $1,000. If the patient has a copay, then they're going to pay their copay, and the insurance pays the remainder of the allowable charges after the managed care write-off is taken. So that is how the flow of the patient responsible money goes. But other factors that could affect a patient's fiscal responsibility may be their out-of-pocket limits. So many plans, if there is a deductible, the patient will have a limit as to how much they're going to have to pay out of their pocket per calendar year, and then once they have reached that limit, then the insurance kicks in at 100%. These are usually for catastrophic plans. There may be benefit limits that we have to be aware of, and this is very true in chiropractic, where a patient may be limited to 15 visits per calendar year or 20 visits per calendar year or $500 worth of chiropractic services per calendar year. Pre-authorizations may factor into whether a claim is paid or not, and if the pre-authorizations are not done correctly, it is usually on the doctor to write off those services, not on the patient, unless the patient was required to fill out paperwork in order to get the pre-authorization and they failed to do it. But if the doctor is required to do pre-authorization, then they are responsible if those pre-authorizations are not done to write off the whole bill. Pre-existing clauses really don't exist anymore under the PPACA or Obamacare as we know it. However, that may change with the new health plans. We don't know what's going to happen with pre-existing clauses. Sometimes bills will be submitted for services that are not covered by the insurance plan. And sometimes patients will have health savings accounts or medical savings accounts that will help pay for deductible amounts and so on and so forth. And finally, a patient's summary plan of benefits, which is the booklet they receive when they sign up for insurance, will outline many of these additional factors that affect a patient's out-of-pocket costs for medical services. In conclusion to this part of the presentation, one of the things that I want you to remember is that insurance policies are essentially a dual contract. Number one, they're a contract between an insurance company and the patient, not the doctor. However, the doctor does have contractual obligations to that insurance company as far as what payment they will accept. But when it all boils down to it, when claims are billed out to the insurance company, it is the patient who is ultimately responsible to see that their claims are paid. And as medical billers, we are generally going to bend over backwards to make sure that these claims do get paid, but there are times when you're going to have to get your patients involved in the process, especially if insurance companies are being particularly uncooperative. As a medical biller, knowing who is responsible for services will help you tremendously with billing and collections, which makes accurate verifications even more important. And as a biller, it's going to be very important for you to know your doctor or clinic's responsibility to the managed care contracts they sign, and whether they are bound to write off certain services or whether they are bound to accept payment in full, or whether they have the ability to charge the patients for certain services that the carrier doesn't cover. So this concludes our presentation today. On Wednesday, what we're going to do is we are going to finish up talking about health insurance with a presentation on Medicare. So we're going to start with Medicare, and then once we've had a discussion on Medicare, then we are going to begin to talk about the whole medical billing process and how claims are generated and the process of that. So I hope, again, I know that this makes a long day for all of you, and I do thank you for sitting in and listening in as this evening wears down. I hope you were able to absorb all of this. Again, we did record this session, so if you feel like you need to go back and listen and try to wrap your head around some of these concepts, I will have the recordings uploaded onto YouTube probably, hopefully by tomorrow, but I am actually going out and teaching all day tomorrow, so it may not be until tomorrow night that I can get everything uploaded, but I'll email everybody your links, and I will talk with you all again on Wednesday night from 6 to 9 to conclude this particular module. I will open it up now to everybody. Let me unmute everybody. Are there any questions before we finish up or comments? Okay. Well, everybody, thank you so much for attending tonight, and I hope you all have a great night, get a good night's sleep, and we'll see you on Wednesday.